Welcome to the Green Wisdom Health Podcast with Dr. Stephen and Janet Lewis, where you will learn about natural solutions to common ailments. And now, here are your hosts, Dr. Stephen and Janet Lewis.
Hello and welcome to this week's edition of our show. I am Janet Lewis.
And I'm Dr. Lewis.
And we are Green Wisdom Health, home of your low-cost lab work, available across the United States. And we are here to educate you a little bit today about adrenal fatigue and immune compromise. And we decided to pick this subject because we just came back from vacation where we decided to buy, I decided to buy ourselves a motorhome, mid-sized motorhome. And Dr. Lewis drove it, so we got a little adrenal fatigued over it.
Against my will, I drove it.
We drove it through West Texas where it's just wind. And we love the RV. It just was a little bit stressful trying to get used to everything and learned so many new things. And then we took it to Colorado, and there were a lot of fires going on out there. And we came home and have a little bit of adrenal fatigue. And I thought, well, there's probably a lot of people out there that are suffering from the same things that don't really know what to do about it. Thank you for Dr. Lewis's knowledge. He does know what to do about it. And
teach Janet how to drive it.
Yeah, not yet. But unfortunately, when you don't know what to do about it, your immune system also craters with it. So today we're going to teach you a little bit about how to get your adrenals back up, normalized, to keep your immune system from not being compromised. So with that, Dr. Lewis, would you like to enlighten us?
Yeah. Hopefully I won't go down too many rabbit trails. Yeah, okay. That's a lie. Adrenal stress, I think most of us create our own storms, and then we whine about it when it rains. We create a lot of it by our consumerism, by wanting too much stuff, and I'm guilty of that too. By being in a hurry, as I get older, I realize it's not slowing down, it's speeding up, and you have more things that you want to get done. And a lot of adrenal stress is just how you think about things. And so I always tell my kids, show up and smile. It'll all be fine. This is actually my fourth podcast this week. Was guest on 3 other podcasts, one of which was 2 hours long, which was enough adrenal stress in its own. It's kind of off the cuff, and I was not prepared for it.
So we're really lucky to have a show this week. Is that what I'm hearing? Because I know your adrenals got a little taxed, and plus we're running a busy practice. But we keep having so many people go, y'all need to put out more shows.
Yeah, the old advertisement of this bud's for you. Well, Tara in Jacksonville, Florida, this podcast is for you, because Tara has followed my instructions real well, and she got some absolutely incredible results on her lab work. Although, to be honest, didn't look like she was unhealthy at all when she started. But it's funny, the people that follow instructions get a better quality life, if not a longer life. And it's by putting nutrients in the body, and many of these we'll talk about how it can boost your immune system and boost your adrenal gland function to normal. And unfortunately, in the last few months, I've seen more and more and more people die that are, a year or two older than me or a year or two younger than me. And it's like, they're always the ones that have the time and the money for beer and cigarettes and, no time or money to put good nutrients into the temple of the Holy Spirit. And I hate that. And we're going to have a question later on that comes up that one of my sweet long-term patients asked about that. But yeah, we create a lot of our own adrenal stress, and the compromise in the immune system. This off-the-cuff 2-hour podcast a couple of nights ago, she says, well, don't you see immune systems going downhill fast? And she was a very popular practitioner from up in the northwest part of America. And I said, yeah, it is getting worse. And she says, what is that? I said, it's not just one thing. It's, the toxins I always talk about, they're real, whether you can see them or smell them or taste them or not, they're real. Read the research. The other thing is our mental attitude. Janet and I are much happier and less stressed if we quit watching the news that kind of skew the truth into something that's not necessarily truth anymore. Many of it, I think it's the foods that we eat, and we don't really have a choice here in America but to eat genetically modified foods. And I know there are people that say they don't make any difference at all. And it's like I've read book after book after book and hundreds of research articles, real research, not opinions. I've read that about genetically modified organisms and how it alters our expression of our genes, how it alters the probiotics in our GI tract. And that is incredibly important to get that as balanced as possible so you can have a proper immune system response. I have seen people sit in here and cry. They couldn't talk to me without crying. And they think they're crazy in the head. And I say, well, the thoughts are in your head, but it originates in your GI tract. And I could go on and on about that, and the ones that follow instructions get really, really good results because your body has more to work with. You know, the FDA says the only thing that can cure is a drug or radiation or chemotherapy, that kind of stuff. But when did we lose the thought that our body's smart enough to heal itself? It just needs fewer toxins and more nutrients to do that. Your body really is a smart organism, but it needs something to work with. And I said in our last podcast, if your doctor says you can get all the nutrients you need out of your food, you need to run like crazy because he's full of it or he didn't read his own research. And here's a good example. There's this young lady that I grew up with, and I told her, I said, I'm so sorry that I couldn't get your sister to stick with it long enough. And her sister's just a sweet, sweet lady. And she had a lot of depression and anxiety. It was pretty severe. And the sister came to me and she says, well, I trust you. I grew up with you, so therefore I'm going to stick it out. Well, then she went back to her doctor, and the doctor says, well, you can either do it naturally or you can do it through me. If you're going to do the natural stuff, I'm withdrawing, my care from you. Well, she chose to go with that doctor. And so I asked her sister, I said, okay, that's just a handful of years ago. Did the extra drugs make her healthier? And she said, no, she's going downhill rapidly. And I'm not against drugs. Anytime you feel so stressed that you want to harm someone or harm yourself, go to the emergency room, go to your MD, go to your psychiatrist. So it's not a bad thing. But let's try to work on the underlying issues that cause your immune system to go awry, that can alter the way you feel mentally, and put chronic stress on your adrenal glands and get into adrenal fatigue, which in and of itself can cause depression and anxiety.
I think it's kind of interesting, the list of, maybe because I have a lot of these, the list of adrenal issues that are associated with adrenal fatigue. When people always tell you they're extremely tired, it can be your adrenals. And people say, well, I take something for my adrenals. And our question is to you, well, how do you know which way the adrenals are going? Are they too high? Or are they too low? Well, you don't know that without lab work.
That sounds like the three bears in the porridge.
Exactly.
Just right.
That's exactly right. We check cortisol on lab to see are your adrenals in the process of cratering, or are they so cratered they need to be built up, because there's actually two different products for those, and you don't want to take the wrong one. So don't take what Aunt Mary told you worked for her, because it probably won't work for you. But some of the signs that go with adrenal fatigue are fatigue and weakness, that you're really tired, depression, fearfulness or anxiety, and hormonal imbalance can be a sign of adrenal fatigue.
And men out there, if you think your wife has a hormonal imbalance, be quiet. It's not worth saying anything.
Interesting. Suppressed immune function actually goes with adrenal fatigue.
Yes.
And, we wanted to talk a little bit about, you're going to say, well, what do we take for this? Because we have this stuff, and what are we supposed to be taking for that? The big one, I guess, that we've been using now that we've just been absolutely thrilled with is the SBI Protect. Because it is for immune gut function, because all of these things that we're telling you are, out of the gut. Believe it or not, it's not in your head. It is something that is in your gut.
We sell so much of it. The company that produces it called us and asked us, how do you sell that much? That's incredible because we're growing that fast.
Well, and it's not worth selling it. The stuff works. It's
people keep coming back. Yeah.
It used to be a prescription, and it was $400 a month, and now it's
up to $1,200. Yeah, but $400.
Yeah, and now it's $70-something a
70,
bottle.
Yeah, 70 to 77, depending on what form you get it, and it's exact same stuff.
But it actually goes in and repairs the gut leakiness and helps with autoimmune and all of these adrenal things. I
may get into the immunoglobulins later because Jonathan in Gallup, New Mexico thinks I'm smarter than I really am.
Well, this is actually an immunoglobulin. So
I may try to impress you, Jonathan. I'm glad you're doing good, but
he can only take so much of your knowledge at one time because there's so much rattling out of there. He said,
I'm not that smart, Jonathan. You're just really smart for following instructions. You're the man.
Well, you talked about people craving bad things to eat, and actually cravings for foods high in salt, sugar, or fat are an adrenal fatigue problem.
Yeah.
Isn't that amazing? So it's like, well, you're feeding your body some more things that there's going to have a hard time with, and your adrenals are already stressed.
Yeah, and when you're craving chocolate, it's usually you want serotonin or magnesium. Janet always says I'm the female because I'm the chocolate person.
Right.
I buy her wonderful chocolates for all her birthday and Christmas and anniversary because I get to eat them all.
Increased allergies are a sign of adrenal fatigue.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. Skin problems. Lightheadedness when getting up from sitting or lying down.
That's an adrenal fatigue because when you stand up very quickly, your adrenals have to have this. It has a biofeedback mechanism, and it has to raise your blood pressure temporarily so the blood doesn't get too little in your head. And that also is a bad side effect from some of the drugs because some of the drugs can cause adrenal fatigue. So if you stand up, sit up suddenly and get lightheaded and want to go tump over on your head, suspect your drugs, suspect adrenal fatigue.
Trouble waking up in the morning despite a full night's sleep.
God.
Isn't that low sex drive?
Woo-hoo.
So see, people are getting all of these pellets and creams and all of this stuff, and it may just be their adrenals, and they didn't know that it was just their adrenals. Decreased ability to handle stress. I might go through a little bit of that sometimes.
Yeah, she takes those adrenal products she may talk about, but she takes a lot of pantothenic acid also. I thought it's just because it made me more tolerable to live with.
Pantothenic acid's wonderful. If you feel like you're having an anxiety attack, which I used to feel like I would get that because there was so much coming at you so fast.
There still is, but we can still handle the stress much better.
It would make your heart race, and it would make you feel like you're trying to have a heart attack. Well, pantothenic acid completely took care of that for me, and it was like, that's great. Poor memory and mental fogginess is actually a sign of adrenal fatigue.
And that sometimes, many times, goes back to the GI tract. When you have a GI tract full of candida, and those books were written 30, 40 years ago. Some of them, The Yeast Connection is one of the good ones. And the yeast, for some reason, stops the thiominase enzyme, so it eats up your B1. And when somebody just says brain fog on their health survey, I pretty much automatically put them on benfotiamine, and they will... 9 times out of 10 say, I don't know, my brain fog's gone.
Yeah, benfotiamine's excellent.
Yeah, it's a way more absorbable form of thiamine.
And then there's a lot of people that tell you, well, when you're that stressed, you should go exercise because it just makes you feel great. Well, personally, and it's interesting. I think that's for people with high cortisol more so. I think they do better exercising. the people with low cortisol, they're already so whipped. It's like, really, you're going to add one more thing onto my plate? Like I have to go run?
Yeah, Dr. Bowen and Dr. Bowen, they do Ironman competitions, and they're really young, good looking, and in good shape. And Dr. Ruth Bowen says, well, if you'll just start going out with us and riding bikes and doing this, you'll get that endorphin rush in your head. It's like getting high. I said, Ruth, when I do that, I get tired. So,
well, and I know, and that's because our adrenals are different. When you're that stressed and your adrenals are that tired and worn out, the key is to focus on gentle activities when you're exercising, like walking or yoga or gentle cycling. Huh?
When you get your sex drive back.
Is that a gentle exercise?
It can go either way.
I'm not going to answer that either. Tai Chi.
Sorry, guys.
Moving on. Once you're starting to feel better, you can improve your exercise tolerance, gradually beginning to add in some moderate exercise, which may be where that falls under.
Or you might be able to tolerate me a little longer.
Well, that's all I have to say about that. So now it's back to you.
Oh, are my ears red?
Yeah, your whole head's red. So,
I'm just going to ramble. Here I go down, Dr. Amanda, down the rabbit trails again, and jumping down a rabbit hole. You hear me talk about toxins, and I think that's very, very, very prevalent, more so than it was in the 70s. Some of the things that are toxic is taking a shower in the morning, you're getting the chloride and fluoride, you're absorbing from the water through your skin. Cosmetics can be horribly toxic, although we got one or two new girls here that's going to even carry that to a new dimension where they'll teach us about it. But there can be like 100 different chemical compounds just in your shower. And in your food that you eat for breakfast. The average person, according to there was a report on human exposure to chemicals, and this was done by the Center for Disease Control, talked about Americans of all ages are carrying over 219 toxic chemicals in their body at any given time. And if the CDC says that, you can take it to the bank, except it's probably 1,219. The immune system, the liver and the kidneys, kind of take the hit on that. And that's why we say, get the immune system, the gut, healed. And I'm always helping people with their liver. If their enzymes aren't just picture perfect, I always give their liver something that it can have building blocks to detox even more rapidly. And again, the FDA says supplements can't, do anything for symptoms and diseases. And I say they're absolutely right. But if you got 3 2x4s and 7 bricks, what kind of house can you build versus if you have a 18-wheeler load of bricks and 18-wheeler load of 2x4s? More building blocks, you can build a better building or better immune system and more energy. So you have pretty much an increased toxic burden in your system. And some of the toxins, they come from pollution. I could read your research about that. Auto exhaust and diesel exhaust actually can increase your risk of heart attack when you get behind that smoky diesel guy. Solvents, which is paint and cleaning products. Most cleaning products contain chlorine. Pesticides, herbicides, insecticides, radiation, inhalants, toxins that come from your lifestyle. And this is in a huge book called I forget the name of it, but it's a huge book, about 900 pages about cancer. I read that once. The dietary choices, fast foods and fried foods, the inflammatory chemicals. And although I'm a big proponent of keto and Drew Manning and all that, fat is good, except you need to get the clean fat from the clean animals, because if it's not clean animals, then it's stored more toxins. Cosmetics, nicotine, alcohol, alcohol and caffeine. God, that hurt. Any kind of drug, over the counter or prescription, they always steal more nutrients of the nutrients you don't have enough of anyway. I just had a consultation about that about a couple of hours ago. Food additives, colorings, and preservatives. One lady today says, well, I'm taking this. My doctor prescribed it. I said, well, it's got a known cancer causer in it because it's a dye. Why do you care what your supplement looks like? So they put a cancer-causing food dye in it. I'd run like crazy. Refined foods and sugars. Now, then there's internal toxins. Now, I mentioned yeast and fungus overgrowth can wreak havoc. There's a book called Cancer is a Fungus by Dr. Simon Sinek, and God forbid I ever get cancer, but I think I'd go to Rome, Italy if I had it to let him treat it. I'm an expert on yeast overgrowth.
I'm pretty sure that you could take a trip there and be treated for less than they would charge you for their standard American care here for cancer.
Oh, yeah, and then you get to see Rome.
Exactly. And you'd feel way better when you were done.
Yeah, one way or the other. I'm an expert on yeast fungal overgrowth because Janet helped me fight it for 6 years. Yeah, it's a long story I won't get into. Byproducts of your typical metabolic reactions, which is, like carbon dioxide and ammonia. Make sure your kidneys are clearing that real well. Undigested food. It's amazing how many people don't have enough digestive enzymes and their chloride's not high enough to make hydrochloric acid. And if you can't have enough hydrochloric acid, it doesn't eat the protein sheath off a yeast, fungus, or virus. And then they go down the small intestine and set up shop. And you wonder why you have a belly full of yeast and you got the belching, burping, full feeling. And then you get the fibromyalgia or fatigue. Stress. And again, we create a lot of our own stress. So that's why you should go pray, meditate, sit on the deer stand. Don't take a gun because don't shoot anything. Unresolved trauma or abuse. There's a lot of that going around. So in a world where you can be anything you want to be, the best thing you can be is just be kind to other people. And unhappy relationships. Yeah, understand that one. Now that I've got a really super one, I really understand how toxic some things used to be in my past. So we can help with that with the nutritional part of it. If you're here locally, I give you a hug, even though I'm not supposed to. I do it anyway. But the nutrients that you need, like phase 1, detoxification, and that's B2 and 3, which also help your thyroid enzymes or thyroid hormones to be converted. B12, B6, folic acid, and be careful if you have that folic acid 5-MTHFR problem. Making glutathione and bioflavonoids. Phase 2, methionine, cysteine, magnesium, glutathione, vitamins B5, and that's the pantothenic acid, B12, and it's not just B12, folks. It's got to be methylcobalamin. Vitamin C, glycine, taurine, glutamine, folic acid, and choline. And if you'll notice, most of those things, if not all of them, are in the formulas that we put you on. We do understand phase 1, phase 2, and how to clean your body out. It's not like that infomercial that goes for 30 minutes on TV that detox won't make you young, rich, and good looking in 3 weeks just because they make you poop.
There are some natural herbs and spices that help build your immune system.
We were in Colorado and we didn't do any of them.
No, because on the way home, there was a million signs that said, "Welcome back to Texas." If you got arrested picking up some illegal substance
cannabis
while in another state, call us. There must be a lot of that going on. We did not partake nor buy.
Not since 1975.
And I wasn't hardly even very old then. So, but there are some natural spices that you can have because we don't want to make you feel like we're trying to sell you something. You can actually do some of this on your own to help your immune system, like honeysuckle and chrysanthemum are good antivirals. I don't know how you're supposed to eat that. Is that right off the flower?
You compete with the bees and you get stung on the nose.
Artemisia.
Yeah, Artemisia is actually...
that's a wicked little guy.
That's good for killing worms and worm eggs, too.
Licorice. And that's not like the...
Yes, deglycerized licorice.
Yeah,
yes.
It's not like the good licorice. Turmeric or turmeric, however you would like to say that. Black pepper, but don't do black pepper and turmeric together.
That's very good because, and a lot of them say, we put black pepper in ours so you can enhance the absorption of turmeric. No, you usually get allergic or sensitive to both of them and don't absorb either one of them. So, there's a lot of sales hypes out there that go on just a little bit of information, and it's usually misinformation. I'm going to do a podcast here pretty soon about the research that people believe that is somewhere between BS and baloney. BS is belief systems.
We'll call that fallacies in fiction.
Yeah.
We have to clean it up.
You're kind.
Oregano is another big one, actually, for immune system.
Yeah. Well, that's really hard on the
harsh.
yeast. It'll kick them out. That'll clean up the GI tract.
One of my personal favorites, cinnamon. Love cinnamon.
But my mama put it with sugar and butter on toast. That's not the best way to take it, folks.
And cloves. Cloves are interesting. They remind me of being in a dental office for some reason. That same smell.
Well, they used to use it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, as a deadening agent.
I swear he is so intelligent. He was actually on another podcast the other day, and someone asked him something about what he ate, and he said, "Oh, avocados are actually my favorite fruit." And I said, when it was over, I said, "I think you did that wrong." I said, "You said avocados were a fruit." He goes, "They are a fruit." I said,
No, I said, "I could be wrong, honey," and I left it at that.
No, he told me to Google. He told me to Google it, which I did. And it's actually from the berry family. It is a fruit. And I thought, oh my gosh, there's just so much rattling around up there that's just very impressive.
Well, knowledge is knowing tomato is a fruit. Wisdom's not putting it in a fruit salad.
I did not know tomato was a fruit either until that same conversation. So you just never know what's coming out.
I'm not that smart. I read a lot, and I remembered a couple of things.
And I do know we wanted to address the conversation that we had on Facebook about a multivitamin that there was a study done on, I don't know what multivitamin, and we can only assume it was not a good multivitamin. But they followed these people around for 12 years that had heart issues. And they concluded that taking a daily multivitamin did absolutely no good or help them at all with any kind of cardiovascular risk. So Dr. Lewis wanted to address that, so I'm going to let him talk about that.
And she asked me to clean it up. Here's the thing. You will hear studies, and again, I'm going to do a podcast on the facts and the fallacies and the BS, which is belief systems or bacon sandwich. A lot of people throw out research and then they hang their hat on it. I'll dispel the aspirin's good for the heart myth too, while they ignored 84 good studies that said that one is bull, and how they skewed the statistics. All right, here's the thing. First of all, we don't know if it's a good multivitamin, multimineral. So here it says, minerals and essential fatty acids help the thyroid, which help the heart. That comes from Journal of Molecular Cellular Endocrinology. Then there's one that says fish oil lowers cholesterol and improves function of sex hormones, which helps the heart. American College of Nutrition. Let's see. Let's go to another one. I've got a list of about 100 here. I won't get there. Fruits, vegetables, EFAs, essential fatty acids, nuts, antioxidants, decrease endothelial inflammation. That means the covering of the heart. That's from the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition. Polysynidins in chocolate lower leukotrienes and prostacyclines, leading to less endothelial inflammation. American Journal of Clinical Nutrition. That, honey, is why I like chocolate. Let's see, another one. Indole 3-carbinol, and that's the thing that's in the cruciferous vegetables that help clean up the hormone imbalance, and leads to DIM, which Janet talks about a lot. Helps in the detoxification of environmental estrogens, which that's from Journal of Biology Chemistry, and that's one of Janet's favorite is DIM.
Well, I think it is safe to say that vitamin that they did the testing on was not a pharmaceutical grade vitamin. I'm assuming it was something that was an over-the-counter product, because they're right. You can take that and it'll do absolutely nothing, because we've seen it on lab.
Have you ever kissed a girl and it absolutely did nothing for you? I'm not asking Janet that, but guys out there, have you ever kissed a girl and there was nothing there? But that doesn't mean all girls are that way.
Well, okay, I don't even know where to go with that.
I was just making her speechless. Homocysteine, which is like a vitamin B, damages endothelium. Now, that means you've got to have good folic acid, which is probably the 5-MTHF. Then you got to have B6 and B12. That's from Journal of Circulation. There's half of you out there have that 5-MTHF problem, and you've got a lower homocysteine. Just saw a lab today. Her homocysteine was a 20. It needs to be under a 7.
And speaking of lab, would you recommend that for adrenal fatigue and immune system, which lab would you recommend that someone...
At least the GWH3, that stands from Green Wisdom Health 3. That's comprehensive.
And what's in that panel that you would be looking for to see someone's immune system?
Well, the ratio of lymphocytes to neutrophils to basophils, eosinophils, the total number of your white blood cells. Then you can see the globulins, then you can see the alkaline phosphatase, and then you can see cortisol, which is going to tell me is your adrenals running 120 miles an hour down a rainy I-20, which people around here know that's dangerous as heck to go 70 when it's raining, or if it's dragging your butt. If you do your 3 cups of coffee and go back to bed, you know you have adrenal fatigue. So we'll see plenty, unless you just want to add your hormones, which I think is a good idea. Then it's GWH1 for a woman because they're number 1. GWH2 for a man because we're always number 2.
And there you have it, folks. So if you're tired, don't be too tired. Go on our website to greenwisdomhealth.com, fill out our health survey, and it will actually recommend which lab panel you need based on what you fill out. And you can actually purchase the lab there online and have it drawn somewhere close to you where you don't have to generally drive very far to have that draw fee done or the draw accomplished. And then we get the results back here, and Dr. Lewis goes over the lab with you. That is part of that GWH1 he's talking about, or the 3. Comes with a functional medicine report, recommendations from him on supplements, and time with him, which is invaluable, as you can tell. I've spent 30 minutes of it with him today, and it's been delightful.
My brilliant, smart aleck remarks. Thanks, Jonathan. I love talking to you.
And you guys have a blessed week, and we'll be here next time for the Green Wisdom Health Show.
Once again, our show has come to an end, but your hope in your health is only beginning. If you or a loved one are in need of a different outcome and are waiting for a brighter future, take the first step and go to our website and fill out the health survey. Please don't keep us a secret. If you know someone that could benefit from this podcast, please share this show with your friends and family. You're only one step away from a life worth living.